A girl who had been adopted as a baby and brought up in what appeared to be a typical family was abandoned as a teenager and sent to live with her birth mother. The mother-daughter relationship was okay at first, but as the days went by, the relationship between the two ended up in a very dark circumstances. Savannah was adopted and spent almost all of her life in Minnesota with Tamile Montague and David Leckie, a married couple. Savannah's adoptive parents reportedly lived next door in Minnesota. They ended adopting Savannah and later her young sister as a result of their infertility issues. Following their eventual divorce, Tamile began dating another man. The teenage Savannah, who was diagnosed with autism, reportedly didn't get along with her mother's new boyfriend, so in November 2016, she decided to send her to live with her biological mother. Savannah joined her biological mother on her isolated farm in Long Run because she didn't really have a choice. Rebecca Ruud, her biological mother, agreed to have her back, even though they haven't had any contact for years. She was late brought to Ruud in Ozark County. Ruud was residing on an 81-acre farm close to the Arkansas border, working as a truck driver and volunteer firefighter. Ruud was practically off the grid, miles away from the closest paved road. Savannah found the trees, animals, and nature to be refreshing. The scenery looks perfect for her. Ruud even shared pictures on her Facebook page to demonstrate to everyone how pleasant it was to reunite with her daughter after such a long absence. In December 2016, a friend of Ruud's wrote, "She looks just like you," on a picture of the mother and daughter. Ruud announced their new family business in June 2017. She announced that she and her daughter would launch a family soap manufacturing company. She wrote on Facebook that she yearned for the opportunity to combine two significant occasions: her Sweet 16 and the launch of the Hidden Hollow Farms soap company. Online, Savannah's life appeared exciting and pleasant. Offline, the reality was much gloomier. One sheriff noted in his notes, "Savannah has been homeschooled and has almost no social contact." She was residing on a property with only one generator supplying the electricity, where she was also sleeping and studying. The only source of water was an old well pump. According to the deputy's affidavit, Ruud and her boyfriend, Robert Pete Jr., were sleeping in a metal building that had been converted to resemble a barn. Savannah slept in the camper next door, which had a broken air conditioner. The sheriff's report also stated that Ruud was becoming increasingly irritated with Savannah's inability to adapt to life on the farm, to the point where she was concerned about the expense of taking in her daughter. "It's to the point that I either need more help to care for her, or I can do nothing with her," Ruud reportedly wrote to Tamile in a text message weeks before Savannah's remains were found. Being around Savannah made it difficult for Ruud to get things done on the farm, according to Tamile. "Savannah severely restricts the amount of work I am able to do," she wrote. She even complained to Tamile that Savannah was treating me like a crap because she didn't want to lose her farm. But losing her daughter wasn't a problem. Ruud allegedly vented her anger on her daughter in the cruelest of ways in the months prior to Savannah's death. The criminal report revealed that Ruud forced the teen to roll around in a hog pen on more than one occasion, according to the authorities, as her form of discipline. Ruud allegedly broke Savannah's phone and forbid her from using Facebook as punishment. She asserts that Savannah once purposefully cut her own arm in a suicidal gesture. Ruud acknowledged rubbing alcohol and salt into the wounds twice daily until the scabs came off, as a punishment for this incident. Everything was incredibly sick. Then, on July 18, 2017, a fire report was received, and Ruud was the one who dialed the police. She called to report a fire that had been raging on her property at the top of a hill. Firefighters were called to put out the fire, which had nearly burned through an acre of brush. When the firefighters were done, they approached Ruud's temporary residence and asked for water. Interestingly, Ruud reportedly declined. She explained to them that Savannah had a minor burn from the fire and that it was best not to disturb her while she was resting. According to the firefighters, Ruud would not permit anyone to approach the teen's camper. Despite receiving treatment for burns on her left arm, Ruud insisted to the crew that her daughter was okay and did not require assistance. On July 20th, 2 days later, she dialed the sheriff's department once more. "I have a missing child to report." On the phone, Ruud allegedly said, "I think she's a runaway. I had a fire 2 days ago. Savannah holds herself responsible for the fire and I was burned, and I believe that was the reason she left." Her daughter, who vanished overnight, took her favorite coloring book, blanket, and pillow. Ruud also told the police that Savannah was at home when she went to bed the previous evening, but was gone when she awoke the following morning. The hunt thus got underway. While a helicopter surveyed the farm from above, authorities combed the property and volunteers combed the nearby woods. While missing posters were on display, the teenager remained undiscovered throughout the day. Savannah was listed as a missing person in the interim. Ruud brought Savannah's computer to the nearby fire department and requested that a technician look at it 4 days after she reported her daughter missing. The sheriff's deputy noted in his notes, "I considered this to be unusual considering law enforcement were actively searching for information leading to Savannah's disappearance." On that same day, Ruud's ex-boyfriend provided information to the authorities that led them to believe that perhaps the girl hadn't actually vanished after all, but rather that something more sinister was actually taking place. He claimed to have seen Savannah bathing in ponds and crawling through hog pens prior to her disappearance. The man also revealed to them the details of her failed suicide attempt and the salt-treated wound on her arm that Ruud had inflicted as punishment. Robert, her current boyfriend, and herself were both questioned. Both the hog pen and the salt in the wound punishment were acknowledged by Ruud. She acknowledged using harsh punishment, but not murdering her daughter. Even so, as the search continued, the couple started to be less helpful. The situation was getting trickier. Savannah may have never left the property, according to the police. By the end of August, the police had a search warrant and were on the scene with dogs to search the property. When the police arrived at the farm on August 4th, an investigator noticed that it had changed. Previously open, on the previous visits, the gates and doors were now chain-locked shut. Ruud and Pete left without a word. To get married legally, the couple traveled about 100 miles to Summersville. It happened on the same day that Savannah's remains were found on the property in a burn pit, so the timing couldn't have been more peculiar. The entire property was searched by the detectives. A pile of recent leaves and branches was located a short distance away from the metal shacks. When they lifted the brush, a layer of ash lay beneath it, and there were cigarette butts on the pile and charred earth all around it. They discovered a button with tiny ducks on it in the ash. A large vertebra bone, 2 intact finger bones, and what appeared to be teeth were also discovered. Police found 26 bottles of lye, a meat grinder, and a knife inside the residence. Lye has the peculiar property of being used to hasten the breakdown of human tissue. There was no doubt that the bones in the pit were human. They had been burned at an extremely high temperature, according to a forensic investigator. The forensic investigator suspected a chemical was used, most likely lye, because the bones had deteriorated so badly. The results of the forensic examination showed that Savannah's remains were indeed hers. Drums of chemicals were discovered on the property. According to the sheriff's report, the mother-daughter soap-making operation Hidden Holler Farm was also mentioned. Meanwhile, Ruud was running away. Investigators discovered that she traveled to the wedding with Pete, and that they had bought bus tickets out of the state. At that point, they issued an arrest warrant and began their search. Ruud was promptly arrested and taken to the Ozark County Jail, thanks to the sheriff's quick arrival at the Greyhound bus station. She was carrying 3 large suitcases, each containing a blanket. The couple planned the wedding with some thought, and not just on the spur of the moment. Legally, married couples are not required to give testimony against one another. They failed to realize that this isn't always the case if the victim is younger than 18, according to the sheriff. Pete, who was 31 at the time, and his wife were later charged in September 2017. Ruud remained in custody while Pete was eventually released on his own recognizance. Ruud was accused of first and second-degree murder, fatal child abuse, leaving a corpse unattended, and tampering with evidence. Ruud's execution was demanded by the case's lead sheriff. She was deemed to be a flight risk, and bail was denied. She created a GoFundMe page, while she was being held to raise the money for legal representation. Who would want to support a woman suspected of killing her daughter? She claimed that she was only a suspect in the disappearance of her daughter Savannah. The page was taken down quickly after it was published. According to reports, Ruud told relatives various accounts of the fire. As of February 2022, the case is still pending, and the trial has been rescheduled.